Hello YouTubers. Well, in this video I'm going to be showing a tool that I just recently got here. What I got a hold of is a chainsaw bar rail closing tool. It's used for reconditioning your older used saw bars when your bar rails get spread or splayed out or worn just from use. So it's a good tool for reconditioning your older bars and getting a little more service life out of it. So first time I'm going to be using one, so I'm going to get on with it here right away. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. We're going to get right into it. I went ahead here off camera and did the opposite side here. I already flipped the bar over in my bench vise here. But a couple things already I noticed here. Quality control, of course, always seems to leave a lot to be desired from these import tools. Now what I mean by that is on the bottom here, they have the pull handle is threaded here to adjust the height of the level of the tool. They also have a little set bolt over here right in between. They're supposed to be at the back edge or in between your roller bearings here. That's what squeezes these bearings here when you tighten the handle here. This is what squeezes your bar rails back in, and then you set it on here like so. And then you just go back and forth. Usually how this one seems to work fine is when you're pulling it back like this is when it's under load. When you go to seem to push it forward, it wants to kind of crawl up and pop out. But one thing I noticed though, this little set bolt here that keeps your bearings at the right height on the edge of your rails, they tap the hole too close to the slide bearing, and when you're turning your handle in here, what's happening is the bearing is jamming up against this bolt. This is a 58 gauge bar. It's working fine here. Like I said, I did the other side, that's fine. But if you're trying to squeeze this down to say like a 50 gauge bar, or even a smaller 43 gauge like on a top handle saw or stuff like that, this bolt is acting like a stop here. It's actually jamming the bearing. They should have had it over just slightly a little bit more and it would have been perfect. But like I say, as usual, quality control is not exactly on par for a lot of these import tools, unfortunately, especially when coming from China. I'm kind of disappointed. You say, well, you could go ahead and take it out, but the problem is it drops right down, and then you're not on the edge here. You're further down, just rolling on the bar body itself below the groove. So that doesn't do you any good. You have to have it sitting on the rails here. So, anyways, like I say, I'm gonna go ahead and like I say, this thing is kind of frustrating. Like I say, the quality on them is. I mean, like I say, I've never used one before, but I can tell this is already problematic. So when you pull it, there's a fair bit of tension, but when you push it forward, right away it wants to pop out like it did. And then you have to back the handle out and get one shot, back it out, one shot, back it up, and then retighten. You can't just. Now, what I'm doing is I stay about 1.5 inches away from my roller nose, and about the same here at the tail end of the bar. I stay about 1 inch away from the end, because you actually do want your end kind of splayed out a little bit, so when your chain comes in off your sprocket, it's not gonna grab on anything. It has to have a little bit of a, you know, and you have to do this quite a few times, even when you're whatchamacallit, when you I'm putting down pressure as hard as I can on it, and it still wants to lift up and off the bar rail. Now some would say, well, you probably got your tool adjusted wrong. Well, possibly. I'll probably, like I say, learn to use it a lot better here going forward. But this thing, like I say, it'll get the job done like a lot of these import tools, but unfortunately, like I say, with that bolt already being out of a line where it should be, will wear or splay out in different places. I'm doing more of it seems to be there's a lot more tension here than there is back here, because what happens is there's a certain spot in the bar where people have a preference of where they buck wood more, and that's where it has more pressure or heat buildup, and that's when you'll get either more wear, or it'll actually, like I say, it'll open up, and with the heat, heat and pressure. So anyways, what this one here is actually worn pretty even all the way through. Doesn't have any weird areas where it's bowed out, where it's worn more or anything like that. But it's spread more towards the nose, because that's where somebody was doing more cutting. Now this is a little Oregon microlight bar. It's one of their older. It's an older bar. I have my chain here. No, I know you're supposed to use a brand new chain, but I'm using the used chain that was on this, that was worn in on this bar. I'm just double checking. Now technically you're supposed to use a new chain, and the reason being is so that your drivers aren't worn down, so that you get an accurate gauge or feel. So I'm not going to tighten this right tight for the old chain, because then when you put a new chain it'll be binding. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But like I say, I've only got so much adjustment here, and that stupid little bolt there is jamming me up here. So being the inventor that I am, I'm sure somehow this tool is going to be getting modified here shortly. So there is no set pattern that you have to just do so many passes, blah blah blah. You do as many passes as needed to, if that takes 10, 15, 20, 25 times, well, you just work it back and forth, back and forth. The one side of this bar is worn more than the other side. Of course, people don't flip their bars as often as they should, so that's usually what happens. You end up with one side of the bar being damaged or worn excessively compared to the other side. So, but you still have to close up both sides of your bar rails, and well, at that point, if you're recycling, this isn't a bar that I've ever used before. This is something that came with a wreck saw. So the bar overall, the rails aren't chipped. They're not whatchamacallit. They're not chewed up really bad. I went ahead and dressed it before and cleaned up and took a little bit of the burr off of it. And the bar itself is still in really nice shape overall. The paint was 3/4 gone off it, so I just took a wire wheel on the angle grinder and I buffed the last of the paint and a little bit of rust off of it, and cleaned it up, and now it's nice and shiny, and with the oil on it, it's not going to rust again for the most part, as long as I'm using the saw. So, but anyways, yeah, it's this side here has got a little bit of slack, but like I say, this is a used chain, so I got to keep that in mind. The other side here is got a little bit less slack, still has a little bit, but that's what we want. So when we put a new chain in there, it'll be actually pretty tight again in this this old bar. So, well, you know what? That even though the tool kind of a little bit frustrating because a little bit lacking in quality, overall this thing has done its job. It's I'll be using it again in the future on other saw bars. I got quite a few that need reconditioning, and that's how you save yourself money. New bars are getting crazy expensive now, so you got no choice. You do what you have to save a buck and, well, you know, get your work done. So, okay, I couldn't take it anymore. I was struggling there trying to get this thing to work proper on my saw bar there when I was squeezing those or closing those rails back down. This little culprit here, like I already mentioned, and on the depth gauge there, they used just a regular hex bolt, and the bearings here, or the one bearing, they have it tapped over too far to the one side. So what happens is when you use the screw here to push the bearing in to tighten or close the saw rails, it was hitting up against this this set screw over here that's supposed to be in the center. Well, it's not centered. It's kind of a little too far over, or tapped over a little too far over. If you're doing a 63 gauge bar would be okay, 58 gauge you're struggling, and a 50 gauge bar would never work. What I could do to correct this, well, I thought about just taking and grinding the outside edge and cutting like a screwdriver slot in it, but then the slot will get chewed up sliding back and forth on the bar, and then you won't be able to get in there to adjust it anyways. The solution to that was all suddenly I thought, well, why not use an Allen head screw? Looking at it a little closer, I figured the thread looked similar to a muffler bolt on one of the saws here, so what I did was dig around in my junk and I found an M6 muffler screw from last year, a project I was working on there. I had from my 365 rust bucket saw there. So anyways, the bolts were kind of I don't know, heat stress sort of looking, so I didn't want to reuse them, run the chance of them breaking in the cylinder. So I opted to put a new set of muffler bolts on that saw, and I had one of these left laying around. Perfect fit, and the bearings can now, or the bearing can now close in, and it just clears it. It's works fine, and I can adjust it up and down where I want with an Allen key. So there you go. And if you're wondering what brand it is, well, an import, no-name brand, SFP tool, whatever. It's a Chinese import. And if you're wondering what I paid for it, I got it on sale for $24 and free shipping to my door. So I know these in the market most times go anywhere between $50 and $100 depending on where you get them from or which supplier. So I figured for the price, if I had to do a little bit of retooling on it, well, not the worst thing in the world. And make sure, like I've heard people complaining online that these screws on these on the adjuster here on the slide here, the threads strip out on here. Well, I've seen one guy complaining on here on YouTube about that, but he was using it right out of the package dry and didn't put any grease or lubricant in the threads, and you could hear it squeaking when he was tensioning it. And then he was taking and using a long-handled chainsaw scrunch like this, putting it over the end of the handle and then torquing it down. Well, yeah, you're gonna strip your threads in there. It's only a small bolt thread in there anyway, so you got to be a little bit mindful of this kind of stuff. But one other thing that I'm probably going to do for improvement is on these bolts that they have here that go through the body of the tool, they've got a spacer bushing and a couple of spacer shims in here. That's fine, but the bolts that hold these are just to say, this one here is fixed, so you can tighten it down, it's fine. The bearing will still work fine. But this one here, you can't tighten it all the way because it has to slide in the slot of this plate here. What happens is it keeps loosening up and the bearing keeps wobbling or tipping around. And I think that's the problem I'm having there with it jumping off the saw bar, wanting to lift up off the bar and having to fight with it. So what I'm going to do next time I go to town is find a little bit longer bolt, maybe a ½ inch longer, and I'll get a Nylar lock nut to put on here so that it goes right through, set it at a certain tension, then it'll be fine. It won't come loose and wobble around. So like I say, you got to keep these things in mind when you buy these discount tools. Sometimes you got to do a little bit of retrofitting to get stuff to work the way you want or work nice and smooth. Well, there we have it, folks. Just another process of maintaining and fixing saws. So this little tool was a pretty decent investment for what I paid for it. And is it the greatest thing around? No, there's better ones, I'm sure. But for a cheap import tool, it overall it's pretty simplistic, and it'll last a long time, and it'll do a lot of work for me going forward. So like I say, I've got a lot of bars that need reconditioning, and I'll be putting in time doing that. So anyways, thanks again everybody for stopping by and checking out another one of my videos, and we'll see you all in the next one.